What's going on, everyone? This is Miles Dompier, and welcome to Checkpoint, a show where we break down all the biggest gaming news stories of the week so far. Joined with me today is my good pal Jez Corden, and we have a lot to talk about. First up, on Sunday, Capcom released a mysterious new countdown timer, set to potentially announce some big gaming news next Sunday. Because of the anticipation and speculation surrounding this countdown, folks in the community have thrown around a bunch of wild theories as to what this could potentially be. So Jez, what I want to know is, what are your thoughts on this Capcom Countdown, and are there any particular announcements you're expecting to see?
Well, Miles, I actually emailed Capcom PR and tried to get them to send us an embargo.
Ooh.
And they were like, we can't give you any embargo. There's not going to be any embargo. You've just got to wait like everyone else for this information. So it's very secret, very hush-hush. I have no idea what it could be via sources or anything like that, but it does have a Resident Evil vibe to it. There's two countdowns, right? One's on Capcom's website and another's isn't one on the Resident Evil website? Am I wrong about that?
So what happened that kind of added fuel to the speculation fire for Resident Evil is the official Resident Evil portal was updated basically the following day. So this countdown timer came out and they then updated the Resident Evil portal. So a lot of people like myself are thinking, are we finally getting the official reveal of the Resident Evil 4 remake? Or is this merely going to be, hey, guess what? Remember RE-verse? That's still kicking. We haven't forgot about RE-verse. Or is this just going to be a big reveal for the Resident Evil Village DLC? There's a lot of speculation. And one other wrinkle that's kind of thrown in is this countdown timer ends 3 days after the Street Fighter Pro Tour. So basically, some people are now saying that, well, maybe this is actually related to Street Fighter. Maybe it has nothing to do with Resident Evil at all. I'm personally thinking it's going to finally be the Resident Evil 4 remake, just because of some kind of rumblings and speculation that started earlier this year saying we might see it soon. But I don't know. Do you feel the same way?
I do. I think it probably is Resident Evil related. Like, we've been waiting for a while about Resident Evil 4's remake. There's been like hints and teasings here and there in interviews about how it's going to be. I think like there's some information out there that we can probably put up on the screen as a video. I'm sure they were saying like they're gonna change some of the things, some aspects of it. And I think Shinji Mikami actually did an interview where he was saying that he wrote the original Resident Evil 4 in a couple of weeks, and that he hopes that the remake will address some of the story consistencies from his original take. So it's going to be interesting to see if it is Resident Evil 4. If it's not Resident Evil 4, then I have literally no idea what it could be. I've seen people band around ideas that it could be some kind of classics collection, like comprise Resident Evil 1 remake, 2 remake, and 3 remake into a single package. And then again, it could also be Resident Evil Reverse related. Well, I'm not super optimistic about that game after the last few multiplayer Resident Evil games, but who knows? Maybe it'll surprise us, right? And then we've also got Resident Evil 4 remake, which it could be, or the Resident Evil Village DLC, which everyone's expecting. Did you ever play the Resident Evil 7 DLC? It was actually quite good. I actually quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I played through all of it. My favorite one, blanking on the name right now, but it was the one where you played as the bare knuckle brawler, the redneck who was eating bugs and just punching everything to death.
And punching everything. Oh. Yeah, that was really, really cool. That was quite unique.
Those are a really great take. Yeah. I was a little disappointed to see that Village had no sort of DLC roadmap. They basically came out and said, oh damn, this game sold really well. I guess we're gonna make some DLC now after the fact. Stay tuned, guys.
Yeah. I mean, there's also another Capcom game that we haven't heard anything about, and that's Stigmata. Do you remember when they announced that?
Yes. That was part of the PlayStation Space Direct, where every single title in there took place in space. So yeah, Stigmata. Dragon's Dogma 2 is another one that came up on the NVIDIA leak. So as a big Dragon's Dogma fan, if they hit me with that, I'd be so excited. But there's only a matter of time, only a few more days before we'll find out the truth as to what this is. So as with everything, set your expectations through the roof and just prepare to be disappointed.
Yeah.
In some other news this week, after a lot of speculation and some weird false leaks, we've finally gotten the PC requirements for Elden Ring, Jez, from Software's highly anticipated new RPG. real quick, can you run us through what a anticipated Tarnished might need to play this game on their rig?
Yeah, indeed. So let's have a quick look through these notes. And so we've got a CPU is Intel Core i5 8400 series, AMD Ryzen 3 3300X, and then we've got NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 or AMD Radeon RX 580 with 12 gigabytes of RAM and 60 gigabytes of storage. So it's a pretty beefy game. But yeah, are you going to play Elden Ring on Xbox, or are you going to play on PC? Given all these speculation.
I am, I'm a dirty console heathen at heart. So unless I have to, I'm playing it on a console. So definitely leaning towards Xbox. I would like to check it out on PC, but yeah, definitely Xbox would be my main platform. Got the squad all set up. There's no crossplay, so thankfully I have a dedicated group of friends who are playing on Xbox. One thing I found really interesting about the minimum specs is 12 gigs of RAM. It is pretty high. As a minimum requirement, the range is basically 12 to 16. And I only point that out because this game is coming to Xbox One and it's coming to PS4. And the Xbox One and PS4 only have 8 gigs of RAM. So those consoles are well below the threshold of the minimum PC requirement. So I've played it on Series X for the network test. So I'm really curious to see how this performs on base Xbox One and PS4.
I do wonder if that's something to somehow related to the fact that it's open world and there's going to be like lots of stuff going on in a continuous world and all that kind of stuff. But it is interesting, as you say, that it has a different RAM requirement considering the different boxes. Obviously, consoles get closer to the metal, so there is a difference there. But it's going to be interesting to see how it performs, and I'm sure Digital Foundry and the usual suspects will be doing their full-blown technical breakdown analysis, but I do hope it lives up to the trailers, because those trailers are pretty damn amazing.
I'm so ready, dude. Are you getting it on Xbox or PC?
I have the collector's edition for Xbox pre-ordered.
Oh, the helmet and everything?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh no, that's the premium collector's edition.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so they've got 2 collector's edition. I couldn't find it. I would have got the premium collector's edition with the helmet, but that was completely sold out. So I just settled for the one with the statue. That comes with an Xbox disc, but that's going to my address in England. And right now I'm staying with my girlfriend in Germany, so I'm probably gonna have to double dip and buy it digitally on Xbox as well. But I will, like you, I do want to check it out on PC and experiment with some of the mods and stuff like that. Like Dark Souls has some really great mods on PC, so it'll be interesting to check it out there in the future as well.
Some good news for people picking it up on Xbox, because Microsoft Rewards is running a punch card program for Elden Ring. So if you were looking to get Elden Ring on Xbox, make sure you open up that Rewards app, because they are giving you 6,000 rewards points for Elden Ring. So that is essentially a nice little 10% discount for those folks looking at it on the console. In some other Elden Ring news, From Software has been slowly trickling out some new classes for Elden Ring. So in the last week, they've revealed 4 new classes. And those 4 classes are the Bandit, the Astrologer, the Samurai, and the Confessor. So real quick, I'm gonna break down what they've officially shared. We don't have a ton of official details, but according to From Software, this is a breakdown of what these classes are. The Bandit is described as a dangerous bandit who strikes for weak points and excels at ranged combat with bows. On the other hand, the Astrologer is a scholar who reads fate in the stars and are heirs to the school of glintstone sorcery. The Confessor is a church spy adept at covert operations, equally adept with a sword as they are their incantations. And the Samurai is described as a capable fighter from the distant land of reeds, handy with a katana and longbows. We have 8 of the 10 official classes revealed, Jez. Now that we have a good idea of kind of what they are and how they'll play roughly, who are you choosing first? Who's your starting class, playthrough 1 of Elden Ring?
It's funny because I actually put a poll on Twitter to ask the audience what I should play between like a tanky sort of knight character or a sorcerer and caster. And I think knight did slightly beat out because I stream Dark Souls and I'm gonna stream Elden Ring on my own channel. But now that like I've read that Elden Ring will be the first Souls game where it'll be completely viable and supported to play through as a bow main. In some of the other Souls games, like using ranged weapons like bows and stuff, they were kind of tools. And I have seen playthroughs of people actually completing the game using those weapons, but it's not really optimal. But some of the bow attacks that I've seen from some of the clips and some of the trailers look really impressive. So part of me is wondering now, like, shall I try out a bandit? Because I played Dark Souls 1 as a sorcerer and a knight, and I'm playing Dark Souls 2 as a knight again. So maybe like this time I'll change it up a bit and play something like a bandit or something like that. What are the classes that take your fancy? The samurai looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's really interesting to see classes that focus on bows, because bows have always been a big part of Dark Souls, but I feel like it's, for most players, it's a supplemental thing. It's never your primary weapon. You don't go and take down a boss using a bow unless you're an absolute mad lad. So I like that the bandit and the samurai both have different approaches to the bow. The samurai seems kind of like this blend of like a warrior with a heavier bow, and then the bandit seems like your more nimble kind of almost archer class. And if you played Sekiro, you know they spent a lot of time refining enemies with ranged weapons. So I'm excited to see how that kind of translates to you. In the tech test, I played as this class called the Prophet, which was so good. So it was basically a blend of classic cleric from Dark Souls with druid. So one of your starting abilities in the tech test is you had these claws, and you would dig your claws into the earth, and you would basically shoot tremors through the ground in this big, huge claw slash. And so it was this interesting focus of like earthen magic, which we've seen pyromancy in previous Dark Souls games, but this was the first time I've seen something in that style, and it was really cool. Also, in the tech test, it was absolutely broken. So the claws were just killing enemies in one hit. So I was just sitting from a distance, killing like 8 enemies in one swipe. So it was, I imagine they'll nerf it, but if they don't, it felt so good. So Quick Resume is undoubtedly one of the coolest new features with the Xbox Series X and S. Unfortunately, it hasn't always been the most streamlined or straightforward experience. Thankfully, a new update is coming to Alpha Ring Insiders that should give players more control of how Quick Resume works. So Jez, I know you wrote up an article about this on Windows Central, but what are the cliff notes for what people can expect with this upcoming Quick Resume update?
Okay, so this is going ahead first to Xbox Insiders in the Alpha Ring, I believe, and then it's going to come to the Beta Ring and then the rest of the rings. And then like in the coming weeks, it'll filter out to the public. But basically what this lets you do, lets you pin 2 games off the top of my head. I think it's up to 2 games that are sort of permanently stored in Quick Resume. So the way Quick Resume works right now, it's like a little bit dynamic, and it tries to guess what games you want stored in Quick Resume. If it detects that you come back to Forza quite regularly, it'll sort of think, oh, okay, well, we'll raise Forza as a priority to remain in Quick Resume. But like that sort of behavior leads to inconsistencies, and obviously like people who play lots of different games, they could come and find Quick Resume. Their game had been pushed out of Quick Resume when they didn't want it to be, and this sort of solves that to some degree. So if you do know that you're always going to come back to Call of Duty or Forza or Halo, and you want to be sure that game is always available in Quick Resume, you will be able to pin 2 games to keep them in Quick Resume at all times, which means you can boot them up without having any loading time whatsoever, and it should just automatically bring you straight back to where you are in the game, or on the menu, or in the lobby screen, or something like that. So it's really cool to see that Microsoft's doing this, and I guess on timing, it'll probably be the next couple of months before it goes public, but it should be rolling out to the Xbox Insider Alpha Rings and Preview Rings and so on right now.
Yeah, stuff like that is huge for Quick Resume because it is such a cool feature, but I feel like the average Xbox user either doesn't know what it is or doesn't know how it works because they haven't done the best job communicating exactly what titles are in Quick Resume, how it works. Pretty much if you hit the dashboard button and go home, that game would default to be in Quick Resume. And so you would go look at your list and you'd have all these titles in Quick Resume that you really didn't know were in Quick Resume unless you manually closed them. They did introduce an option so you could manually choose what titles are in a Quick Resume state, which was huge, but being able to pin 2 specific ones, like if you're invested in an RPG like Dying Light 2, and you want to have a Quick Resume state there, you can set that aside and make sure no matter what that is in Quick Resume, and stuff like that is huge. And I'm excited to see them kind of innovate and implement more controls for the average user. In some other massive news this week, in a kind of sort of surprise, quite frankly, the surprise was spoiled, but CD Projekt Red was teasing a stream this week. And a lot of us were speculating that this would be the next gen update, or current gen now, for PS5, Xbox Series X, and Xbox Series S. And sure enough, As part of Tuesday's stream, it was confirmed that version 1.5 of Cyberpunk 2077 is out. So in addition to the graphical enhancements, the resolution enhancements, we also got some gameplay overhauls to skill trees and some fundamental tweaks to the overall gameplay experience. So Jez, I know you were pretty glowing on this when it first came out, but how does it feel to have this update finally out in the world? And is this going to make you dive back in after well over a year?
Well, for those who are, aware of my content, you'll know that I loved Cyberpunk from day one.
Yes, Cyberpunk stan, day one.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it when it came out, but of course I played it on PC, which was arguably the best version of the game. We had no idea the state the console versions were in, and I have actually downloaded the update, and I have been playing it a little bit ahead of recording this week's Checkpoint. Pretty cool show name there, Miles, by the way. Before recording, and I did try it out. It's still on the Xbox Series X. It still doesn't look as good as the PC version. The PC version, even on my PC, is not as powerful as my Xbox, frankly, but it still, I think, looks better on my PC than it does on my Xbox. So it's not gonna completely blow you away. If you weren't a big fan of the visuals originally on your Xbox, I don't think this is really gonna completely blow you away. It does have ray tracing now on Xbox, but you have to sacrifice 60 frames per second to get that ray tracing, and it is hard, man, to go back to 30 frames per second after playing 60 frames per second games for so long now. Since the Xbox Series X launch, I basically haven't played any games at 30 frames per second. When you go back after getting used to 60 frames, it's so hard to do that, even for ray tracing. So I've just been playing at 60 frames per second mode with the ray tracing off, and it does look better. It looks sharper and all that kind of stuff. Some of the other changes I haven't really gotten into and experienced yet. Well, some of the issues that I had with the previous game was the economy was all messed up. Itemization was completely broken. You could find a piece of armor that looked really cool but had worse stats than a raggedy t-shirt, in the game. It just felt like a lot of it was underdeveloped, and I did write that in my review. Didn't affect my enjoyment of the game, but there are a lot of aspects of it that were underbaked, and it does feel like this is going to some way to try and improve the situation. Buffs to certain weapons and talents that were useless, and improving the flow of game progression and stuff like that. I'm probably going to look at doing a review as I dive further into the game, but early impressions are pretty good. It does feel a lot smoother on Xbox Series X than it did before. But indeed, whether this can sort of turn around people's opinions of the game and the public perception of the game wholly remains to be seen. But this is a really, really important first step. Although it's not really the first step. This is patch 1.5 of several fairly big updates. This is hopefully will represent a turning point for the game where they can start focusing on adding some of that DLC, some of that promised DLC, other improvements to the game, and hopefully we'll see it grow in popularity and, ultimately be the game that everyone expected it to be, I guess. But yeah, it's nice to have seen it that it's finally come out, and in February, no less. The busiest February in gaming history, apparently. Surprisingly.
That was the thing that killed me, because ahead of all of this, I was joking about, the Cyberpunk 2077 update. It's going to launch middle of February. It's going to be sandwiched in between Horizon and Elden Ring. And sure enough, the absolute maniacs at CD Projekt Red said, yeah, you know what? That's the time. That's our time to try to relaunch Cyberpunk is right in this window. It's still exciting. So if you are unaware, there are two distinct modes on Xbox Series X and PS5. A basically dynamic 4K at 60 mode, and then the ray tracing mode at 30 FPS. Unfortunately, on the Series S, there is only one option. There is a 1440p mode at 30 FPS. And Jez, I've seen some people very unhappy about this. I've seen some people vocally disappointed in the update for Series S. So do you think this indicates any sort of performance woes for Xbox's budget console, or is this just a matter of maybe not the best optimization for that specific console?
I think CD Projekt Red really did bite off more than they could chew with this game. It is still definitively a past gen game, or a cross gen game, whatever. You can tell that it was sort of originally being built for the past gen consoles, the Xbox One and PS4, and then they got stuck in this sort of weird place where they're using old APIs and they don't translate that well to next gen and stuff like that. It's not a true next gen game or current gen game, which is why it seems to do best on PC. Like even a modest PC like mine seems to produce better results even without like DLSS on and like, AI upscaling stuff. It just looks and performs better on my PC for whatever reason. So I do think there are optimization things to be considered when it comes to Cyberpunk, specifically with the Xbox Series S in mind, because the Xbox Series S has produced impressive results across games that are designed from the ground up for it. Gears 5, for example, and Halo Infinite, for example, and Forza and Flight Simulator and stuff like that. But like, we're still very early in the gen. Like as we get further into the gen, and we finally say goodbye to the PS4 and Xbox One, developers will be, they'll be building their games from the ground up for the current gen consoles, which should hopefully see improved performance on the Xbox Series S. But still, it's still disappointing for those who were hoping to sort of, get more out of that console. But therein lies the trade-off,
Exactly. Yeah, so it is interesting to see that, and it was interesting to see a lot of the fan reactions to those basically spec listings for the Series S version. So our final topic for today's show is I'd actually dropped an editorial over on Windows Central on Friday talking about Xbox needing an answer to the Nintendo Direct. And there's been a lot of interesting conversations surrounding that. For me, this stemmed from this pessimism that I've seen online from the community, despite the fact that we know of games like Hellblade 2, A Fable, Avowed, The Outer Worlds 2, there is like a list of 20-ish exclusives coming on the horizon. Despite all of that, people are still saying that the near future of Xbox isn't exciting. And so, Jez, what I want to talk to you about here is, do you think that Xbox has a fundamental problem with the way it communicates its games to its audience? And do you have any suggestions for how they can tweak that?
Well, I did read your editorial and I agree with it wholeheartedly that the Nintendo Direct format is the right format for this day and age. Although, like, when I did put this poll to my audience on Twitter, it was pretty evenly split. That about half the people liked the sort of once a year E3 style complete blowout versus the Nintendo Direct more like random times and all that kind of thing. Personally, I think the Nintendo Direct format is better because you can sort of tailor it to developer milestones. You don't have to say to your developers, you have to hit these milestones on this date to prepare for the June marketing cycle. Though they can sort of begin storing up those vertical slices, and then just once they've got enough, they can do an Xbox Direct. And I think that works. I think that's better for devs, and I think it's more in line with what people expect these days as well, especially in a post E3 world. Like, is E3 ever going to come back even? Do we even know if it's going to come back? There'll still be a marketing cycle in the summer to prepare for Q3 and Q4 because of Christmas and, the Q4 trading cycle and all that kind of thing. But at the same time, I don't think the formal E3 format is what's going to be happening going forward. So I do think Microsoft needs to modernize the way it thinks about some of this stuff. I don't want to see huge amounts of influencers on screen being interviewed. I don't want to see really long, indulgent sort of dev interviews and stuff where they talk about all kinds of things that aren't to do with the games. I just want to know what the games are and what they do, in brevity, in brief, like Nintendo's format, because I'm a busy guy. I'm a busy guy, Miles.
Time is money, Jez, and that's what's so excellent about the Nintendo Direct format. There's no fluff, there's no filler, they just show you games. I don't mind the deeper dives. Those are cool. Those are an interesting way for fans to engage with Xbox content. But when that's your only means of showing games to people, you're not pulling in anyone else. You're not pulling in casual audiences. You're not pulling in the Nintendo diehards, the PlayStation diehards. On the opposite side, every time there's a state of play or a Nintendo Direct, you see all this energy and all this speculation from all camps regarding what it might be. And I think Xbox hasn't figured out what that show is for them.
It definitely sticks out like a sore thumb that Microsoft is the only one that isn't doing this kind of format right now. And the amount of hype that you see come from a Nintendo Direct announcement is just astronomical, Microsoft's really gonna have to if Microsoft does complete its acquisition of Activision Blizzard, they're really gonna have to sit down and have a high level think about how they handle delivering marketing for some of those games, because they're going to have QuakeCon, Minecraft Live, BlizzCon, and the whole Call of Duty marketing cycle is a force unto itself. And then you've got Xbox Game Studios as well. They really need to have a rethink about how they want to present themselves as an organization from a marketing perspective, and how they want to associate games like Call of Duty and Diablo and Elder Scrolls and Fallout, how they want to associate that with the new Microsoft gaming brand, and Xbox itself. So I do think there needs to be a complete revamp of the way Xbox does this. And it might need a complete change in like the mentality and the sort of old-fashioned thinking that Microsoft has towards some of this stuff, because I don't think the on-camera interviews, I don't think they're sort of, they come off as cringy sometimes, and you can tell people are reading from a teleprompter, and there's a lack of dynamism there. That's fine if all you're doing is talking about a game, but if you're doing like a deep dive dev interview on script, it just sort of it just has this horrible pacing to it. I don't know. It's hard to put into words in short format. But summarize: Nintendo Direct, rip it off. Just copy it. 1-to-1, copy it. Rip it off. Do it.
Do it.
Oh,
yeah, I would love it. Again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, if you see someone doing something that works, hey, it's okay. It's okay to say, you know what we were doing wasn't what people wanted. This is what people want. And if you cater to that, maybe we can get closer to having that feverish Xbox energy. And I think if they do it regularly to some degree, like in my editorial, I said quarterly, it would give fans more immediate future Xbox to get excited about. So it wouldn't be that's not coming till X year, or they have nothing in the next 6 months, 9 months, whatever the case might be. Because Xbox does have a problem with the cadence at which it markets its games to players.
I do think that's a really important point that you've made, that for the first half of this year, basically until Starfield, we have no Xbox exclusives that I'm aware of off the top of my head.
Redfall, maybe.
Yeah, and the rumors are Redfall might even be delayed out of the summer. So some rumors suggest that. So like Redfall, the four player co-op sort of vampire-ish sort of game from Arcane, which might as well be delayed. We haven't really seen much of that besides some leaked footage and a CGI trailer. We haven't seen anything of Starfield besides concept art and a very scripted in-engine trailer. It just, especially when you compare Xbox to Nintendo, it feels like there's a lot more gameplay footage out there for Nintendo's roadmap than there does for Xbox's roadmap. But at the same time, I appreciate that Xbox has got quite a lot on its plate right now, like the whole Activision stuff going on and all that kind of thing. But as well, Microsoft's a pretty big company. You'd have to hope that there's someone who could facilitate this marketing means when a company's as big as Microsoft and Xbox. So I do think they need to look at it. And maybe they will, maybe they won't.
We'll just have to wait and see. Well, that's going to do it for the first episode of Checkpoint. Be sure to join us next week as we break down more gaming news. If you enjoyed this video, if you want more Xbox and PC content, be sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, all that great stuff. Until next time, everyone, take care.